Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in our SSCCC Chapter 4 Town Hall. My name is Iván Hernandez, and today I'll be your facilitator. And I'll go over a little bit deeper into who we are in just a second. I just wanted to make sure to upload or have the presentation ready. Well, thank you. Today we're going to be doing the Student Center for California Community Colleges, also known as the SSCCC Chapter 4, which is our undocumented students town hall specifically focused. With that, let's move forward to a little bit about myself. So as mentioned, my name is Iván Hernandez, and I'll be serving as the facilitator. I serve as the SSCCC Vice President this year, and I also serve as the chair for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Accessibility, and Anti-Racism Committee. And one of our task force goals this year was to hold two different town halls, one for our Native American and Indigenous student, and then one for our undocumented students. So we're holding our second one. Let's see. Today, Olivia and Annie could not join us, but they are the head leadership of the task force. So to give you a bit more of background information within the committee itself, which is in a statewide committee that is formed of different elected students from throughout the states, we have something called task force, which are essentially smaller groups of individuals. And then Olivia volunteered to be the chair of the undocumented student task force, and then Annie volunteered to be the vice chair of the task force, and both of them have done amazing jobs. A little bit about Olivia: she serves as the regional first director for the Sacramento area, and then Annie serves as the legislative first director for the San Jose Silicon Valley area. And I'll provide all of our contact information at the end. Okay, so some small housekeeping rules. One, as mentioned previously, this webinar will be recorded and will be archived on the Student Senate YouTube channel. So if you ever want to see any of our previous webinars or anything along those lines, just know that you can find any of those at the YouTube channel, or you can always reach out to us and make sure that we will give you the correct information on how to access these recordings. And then two, we do have live transcriptions turned on, just to ensure that everyone is able to access this recording in the future. Awesome. So here's a small agenda breakdown. Most of the time allotted for this town hall is to hear from the students and from anyone else who would like to share experience that they've seen as an undocumented student, or their friends, their family. This idea of the chapter specifically is a document for us at the statewide level to address the concerns from our undocumented community, bring them, and then as soon as we get this information, we create a document and we bring it to our sister partners such as Chancellor's Office, Academic Senate, faculty, and so forth. So a little bit about the agenda is that one, I'm gonna go over the purpose of the town hall in just a second. Then we're gonna spend some time going over who we are, and by we I mean more specifically the SSCCC. Then I'm gonna go over and provide a quick presentation of the work that we've done in the chapter 4, and I'll also post the link so everyone can access it at their own time, and you all have quote unquote commenter access, so you can create any kind of comments in areas where you would like to see improvement, or if you think that something should be deleted, that's where we're gonna focus on. And then the vast majority of our town hall will be devoted on feedback in the Q&A section. So now that we're here, the purpose of this town hall is to hear from students, and that can be either your personal experience, your friends' experience, classmates. If you have basic understanding of the different struggles undocumented students have to go, we want to hear from you, because I will say at the leadership role, we have a few undocumented students, but we know specifically that undocumented students comes from a multitude of different backgrounds, and we want to ensure that we acknowledge all of those correctly into our document. So we at the Student Senate, at the SSCCC, we are the statewide organization, and then we are being tasked with creating this document, as mentioned previously, for Chapter 3, Native American and Indigenous students, and then Chapter 4 for undocumented. And one of the requirements is that we host at least one town halls to hear from the students and so forth. And I'll give you more insight in just a little bit about the structure of the chapter, of the task force, and then the town halls. But before we do that, let me show you, or let me tell you a little bit more about who we are in the SSCCC. Well, the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, also known as the SSCCC, is a 501c3 nonprofit community-led student-run organization that represents over 2 million California community colleges. And that is across 116 colleges throughout the state. When I first got elected as VP, it used to be 1.8, then we went to 1.9, and now we're over 2 million California community colleges, which is exciting, and everything in a span of less than a year. We at the state level have three major pillars of engagements that guide us, our vision and values in the SSCCC. One of them is the system participatory governance. More specifically, we want to ensure that we appoint the students to different participatory governance within our own internal committees, external committees, our sister partners. We want to make sure that we have the student representation, the student voice in those decision-making committees. And for example, our own board of director members, which are 25 elected students from throughout the states, sit on various external committees to ensure that they are representing the voice of all the students as the best of their capabilities in those committees. So that's one of our pillars, that's one of our goals. The other one focuses specifically on the legislative and policy advocacy area. So we try to sponsor, co-sponsor, and support bills that are aligned with higher education. More specifically, we're constantly looking into how can we make sure that these bills support our students in the best way possible. How can we make sure that we are constantly engaging with our local elected officials, with our assembly members, the state senators, and congressional representatives at our different visits. So for example, 2 weekends ago or so, I was able to attend a legislative visit in Washington, D.C., where I engage in different conversations with our representatives, federally speaking, on what are some of the issues that we at the Student Senate are hearing from the students. And thankfully, most of the feedback we got was really positive. Our representatives were really happy to help us address those concerns. And that is the goal of us at the SSCCC, is to make sure that we are constantly engaging in the legislative and policy advocacy of the efforts by attending conferences with our system partners, by making sure that we as the students are being taken into consideration when a decision is being made. The other one and last one is regional support and development. This one focuses specifically into getting the outreach to all of our students from throughout the state. So the SSCCC is broken down into 10 main regions. Region 1 serving our Northern California area, which is our Redding, Shasta area, and then Region 10 serving as our San Diego area, and then multiple regions in between. And the way we do that is we have regional officers who are constantly going out to local student governments, local colleges, engaging with the students and getting input from there. As we know, every single part of the state is very different, and we want to ensure that when we're representing the students from throughout the state, we're constantly engaging with them and we know their priorities and their concerns as our foremost priority. So that is one of the aspects, is essentially reaching out and getting support and providing development to those different organizations. And in fact, if you are in this call and you at one point want to have us as the SSCCC in your college, feel free to get in contact with us and we'll make sure to coordinate everything possibly that we can to attend. And I'll provide my contact info towards the end. Awesome. So with that, now let me break it down more specifically about the chapter. So I sort of talked about the SSCCC and our vision. And at the beginning, I mentioned specifically about the chapter, but let me provide you some more statistics. A chapter is a document comprised of students' stories, data, and goals on a specific underserved community. So for example, this was a work that began in 2020, and the first chapter that the SSCCC ever decided to do was the African American Black student chapter. Then the following year, with their anti-Asian hate, which targeted specifically our Asian and Pacific Islander community. So those were the two. And then this year, we decided to do 2 different chapters. One being our American Indian Alaska Native, known as Native American and Indigenous students. And then our second one being undocumented students. The idea behind this chapter is that although there is data out there that says, well, these are the communities that are suffering, this is what we should do, there's nothing specifically from the student perspective, more specifically within our system of higher education here in the community college system. That's why we as the students said, we need to start creating chapters and documents that basically address the needs of our students, that say, this is who we are, this is some of the issues that we're facing while being in our community college system, and these are some of the solutions that we would like to see implemented. And I'll show you more specifically on the work that we've done so far, but this is the little idea behind the chapter. In order for us to create a chapter, first, we need to create task force groups, which I mentioned previously, that Olivia serves as the chair of the undocumented student task force, and then Annie serves as the vice chair. As soon as we have the task force leadership, I then go ahead and start reaching out to different individuals and publicly request people to join our task force. And these individuals must be undocumented students. And we try to get a very diverse range of undocumented students to make sure that we were actively engaging in collecting the information from them and their experiences. The group consists of about 5 to 6 members. We will meet often and start asking questions. So can you share with us background information about your life story? What would you like to see in this document, and so forth. And then, of course, collecting more data. So that was sort of the main part of the task force, was to create basically a base for everyone to engage. And now, now that we have a solid draft, we're presenting it to the students to make sure that they are either happy with it, or if they feel that something else needs to be added, so we can address it. And engaging in communications. Is this something that you think truly represents you, or should we do something differently? What should be deleted? What should be added? And so forth. So that is a little bit about the chapter. So now we're gonna spend a good amount of time from our town hall. Basically, I will be introducing you to the work that we've done so far. So let me click on this link, and then I'll share the link with everyone as well, to make sure that everyone has access to this document, and then you can read it at your own time. So give me a second. Okay, I just pasted it in the chat. Hopefully all of you have access. If not, feel free to just let me know. But I'll give you a basic run through of what we have thus far, just so you can get a better understanding. Like I said, I won't read through it because it is a few pages long, but I do want to give you the main insights of the work that we've done. And I also wanted to let you know that once this has been approved, we will actually make this into a nicer format, where we're going to have pictures, where it's going to have vivid colors, and it's just a better presented document. This one is the draft. So in here, we basically just have the information that we need. But the first idea is that, and actually one of the things that I will be adding is more specifically, the student senate title is going to be at the front, and then we're going to have our second title, which is Anti-Racism, a Student Plan of Action on Undocumented Students. And Anti-Racism, a Student Plan of Action is our official name for the chapter, although we don't always call it a Student Plan of Action, just given that it's a little longer. But we're gonna begin this chapter with specifically introductions. And by introductions, I mean we're gonna give a little background about who we are in the SSCCC. And then I'm gonna, the way that chapter is structured is that we're gonna begin providing a bit more information from our undocumented students, and then acknowledging that our undocumented students come from a multitude of different backgrounds and walks of life. And then we also provide some statistics by basically saying that California Community Colleges has the largest population of undocumented college students, serving roughly 83,000. And I also have linked the information from where I have found this, which comes from Call Matters. We then address the experiences of our students, and then the last portion in the quote-unquote first section of the introduction is providing background information that we at the SSCCC have spent over a year to make this happen. Because one of the aspects I forgot to mention is that in order for us to create a chapter, we spent an entire year from the moment the VP who chairs the committee gets elected. They start planning the work until we get to this point of the town hall. And then these chapters will get approved at the General Assembly. So if any of you are going to General Assembly, you will receive the final presentation of the work that we've done, and you will know that you have helped contributed with your information, with your story on this process. We then go very specific into the undocumented community, and bringing first and foremost the problems that has been brought to us. And like I said, these are problems that have been shared by our task force. And if you have any additions to it, we will be more than happy to add them. We acknowledge the different struggles, and we also mentioned that undocumented community is comprised of Latin, Central, and South American individuals. But that's not all. That's not all. So, for example, we also provided some statistics that the vast majority of California's immigrants were born in Latin America, 46, or Asia, 39%. And then California has a sizable population of immigrants from dozens of countries. The leading countries of origins are Mexico, the Philippines, China, India, Vietnam. Among immigrants arrived between 2012 and 2021. And the more than 50% were born in Asia, while 34% were born in Latin America. And I think this is very important for us to address because there's this common misconception that if you are an immigrant, if you're an undocumented student, you must come from Latin America, Central America, South America, or more specifically, in many cases, Mexico. And that's not true. We do have a large percentage of students from our community college system who are undocumented from other parts of the world. So I thought that was a really important aspect to bring into this topic. Then we go into more specifically issues that we've seen, and thankfully some of our members have provided their own input. So for example, access to education is a big one. Just in general, undocumented students face challenges in accessing higher education due to limited financial options and eligibility restrictions. And then here our student from Mount San Jacinto College also provided some of the input that their college has been up to and how sometimes the lack of a scholarship for undocumented students makes the community feel excluded from financial resources. So that's one aspect. The other one is, of course, our DACA, our Refer Action for Childhood Arrivals. And then in here, we just left it pretty, of course, we're going to add more information, but that's the main idea. And then we just say that the current status of DACA not allowing new qualifying undocumented students to join DACA is a major concern. We have employment opportunities. We have undocumented student centers. And like I said, this one is broken down into multiple because not only the undocumented student centers are needed from throughout the state. Some colleges provide amazing opportunities and amazing centers, but some other ones don't have the resources. And I think that is something that our statewide chancellor's office and elected officials should advocate for. And we go more in detail as to how this is affecting students, the different resources that they need, specifically legal guidance is really important, counseling, tutoring, mental health awareness, and so forth. And like I said, we also have stories provided by one of our task force members. So thank our task force member for bringing those to us. We go a little bit more specific into access to healthcare, legal challenges, and then border patrol on campus. And I think this is a big one where I've heard from different individuals that they have seen and feel basically unsafe when we have border patrol on campus. So those are some of the issues that we have now. I will definitely love if you have any other issues that you have experienced, that you have seen your friends experience, that you have talked about in your college in general. And like I said, at the end, we're gonna allow more time for us to go more in detail on these different issues that we have and how can we start implementing them. But this is what we have thus far. We then talk a little bit more about cultural awareness and respect. More specifically, this is more general information. This was also provided in our chapter 3 for our Native American and Indigenous students, just bringing in cultural awareness and respect for all. And specifically in this case, we said that the undocumented community is often impacted by multiple challenges that negatively impact them seriously. It is important to create a climate of cultural awareness and respect to allow students of colors to feel welcome, free to express their opinions, and safe in every collegiate environment. So a more general aspect, but we also provide some information on that end. So for example, in here we said, well, our undocumented population, whether that is our students or just our undocumented community in general, are the backbone of our workforce. And we provided some data. These are the number of individuals who are currently working and are undocumented, and we just don't think it's fair for them to be working such a hard labor works and that they don't even receive the appropriate respect that they should be given as a human individual. We then provided some suggestions specifically, like I said, more general. If you have anything more specific, we would love to add it into there. We have equity training, like I said, more general as well, just making sure that we provide equitable training, not only for the students, but also for faculty, staff, and college administration, because everyone should be fully aware of the different equity training and work that we're trying to do to make sure that the environment is as inclusive and as welcoming as we possibly can. Peer mentors and alliances. This is just providing the idea of we should have more mentorship for our undocumented community, whether that is through some other students, whether that is through some other faculty, some other individuals on campus, and that we have alliances, that we have our community support clubs, groups, or any other individuals who wants to support and to make sure that we are addressing racism, microaggression, and other racial barriers to their education. We also provide some other suggestions, such as the peer mentor program, or also the formal participatory governance in committees to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our administrators are the ones who oversee this process, and we need to make sure that we're constantly engaging with them and saying, this is what our students are needing, and this is what you should be doing. And then we do have more room for other input suggestions if you have any classroom experience. This one just basically saying, addressing the classroom experience environment from the students, but the more important aspect is the student story. So far we have put in one of our students who volunteer to put in their story in there. We change it a bit, so it's a different name, and then a college at large. But the idea is the same. Is basically the struggles the most of our undocumented students face. And if you have any specific concerns that you would like to have in here, if you want to share your story, whether that is through your name or through a different name, or just provide some other input, we will be more than happy to add it in here. The more human and student based we make this document, the more impactful it will be for everyone else. And then the last few sections is one, our concluding thoughts. This is more specifically addressing and thanking everyone who has been involved in this aspect, and acknowledging that it has taken an entire year for us to get this work done, and also thanking everyone who has spent their weekends on our meetings, who have also on a monthly basis sending us email feedback and so forth, and also saying that we will actively collaborate with our system partners such as the Chancellor's Office, faculty, staff, and administration, and other student organizations to break down the barriers of racism and racial inequity that are impacting the lives of our students. That is our say. That is what we are basically saying to everyone. We have this document, and now we're going to use it to make sure that we create more opportunities for all. And then the next steps is eventually we heard from our students. We have suggestions on what they would like to see change. How do we get to those points? And these next steps are more focused into the general idea of having partnership with local organizations, legal clinics, community groups, so forth. But we also have our own specific part of the SSCCC saying this is what we are going to be doing to help out. And actually, in the past, the SSCCC has played a big factor into advocating for the inclusion of the IT numbers and implementation of cultural awareness training for faculty and staff on our campuses. But of course, we're constantly looking to engage, and we're constantly looking to make sure that we're breaking down those barriers that our students are facing. And then the last section is basically our acknowledgement. I know for a fact that we would not be able to have this document if it wasn't for all the support and leadership from our students from throughout the state, from College of San Mateo, from Mount San Jacinto, from Ridley College, San Diego Miramar, Sorocoso, and so forth. And this is just the group of people who serve in our task force, but we have had so much input from some other individuals from throughout the state in this span of the whole year. So that's just to give you a bit of background information on what we have. Like I said, this is draft, which means that we can add, we can delete, we can do anything that you think is most appropriate. And that is a quick glance of what we have thus far on the chapter. All of you have access to it. So I definitely want to open up this time from here till the end of the town halls to hear from you as the students, to basically hear what are some of the concerns that you had in the past? What are some of the things that you would like to see added? And if you don't want to speak up, feel free to put it in the chat. I will take into account all of those aspects. But with that, I will be more than happy to address any questions, or if you have any input that you would like to share, it will be great. And even if it's not major, even if you're just saying, I like that's amazing, because we're basically getting some confirmation from our students that they like this. Or if you're like, I don't know about this, I'll be more than happy to share on that input. Oops, okay. First, hopefully that fixes it. So with that, does anyone have anything that they would like to share? Like I said, you can type it in there. Anything that you found more that you would like to see implemented? Anything in general? But yeah, definitely go for it, Cesar.
I just wanted to, excuse me, state that I am really proud of the SSCCC for their bravery standing by undocumented students. I think, with the cascading issues that students from minoritized populations have to deal with, I think it is important when you have the backing of such a large statewide institution. Definitely does give reassurance, but I think more definitely does need to be done. I would also advocate for the inclusion of language that also refers to people that are refugees and asylees in this country. And I believe that they're also important parts of the undocumented population. But again, thank you for your work, and I'm looking forward to making progress with y'all.
No, thank you for sharing those words specifically on your suggestions. We will definitely take that into consideration and find the best way we can implement that into the chapter. Thank you, Cesar. Any other input in
Thank you.
general?
Hi, yes, I would like to add in the section for the undocumented centers that they have to be well staffed, because in my experience, at Mount Huntington College, we don't have an undocumented student center, and I know other colleges and other universities already have this. And then from my experience on at my school is that we are sharing our counselors, we are sharing the resources with other programs. Like the director for our program was in charge of 5 other programs, and she was lovely, she was great, she did an awesome job for our community. But it's it's kind of hard, because you also see them that they try to help, but it's not focused, right? Because they have so much that they have to handle. They have all of these other programs, and the counselors also are, they're dreamer counselors, but they're also EOPS counselors. They're also care counselors, and it's very hard sometimes to book appointments with them. So I think a part of having the Dream Center is to make sure that they're well staffed, meaning that each center has its own program director, that center has a exclusive set of counselors and financial aid advisors. For example, like the person that handles all dreamer related financial aid questions at my school. We only have one person, and it's so hard to get in touch with her, because she's handling other things and it's a busy individual. I get that, but then you're creating more barriers for our community, right? So I think it's very important to highlight that part, that it's not just about having the center and saying, oh yeah, we have a center. It's about making sure that we actually are staffing those centers with qualified people that understand the undocumented student experience, and that can actually help the students and have the time to dedicate to their success, really. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted to just add on that about the dream centers.
No, thank you so much, Caris. And actually, that is a concern that we've have heard in the past, specifically on just counselor accessibility in general. I think you don't necessarily have to be undocumented to have this issue. We don't have the resources. We don't have enough counseling available
Right.
for everyone. And it can be in various ways. It can be academic counseling, it can be mental health counseling, or some other forms. And as you mentioned, being an undocumented student is very crucial. I myself although I was born in the US, I grew up in Mexico. I lived there most of my life. And so when I moved, I faced multiple challenges, and thankfully I had support because I had a quote unquote being a US citizen. But even then I was like, I cannot imagine what it must feel to be undocumented and have to go through all of the things that I went through, knowing that you basically quote unquote you don't legally belong here. And I want to make sure that that is a topic. And as we mentioned previously, not every single community college has a dream center, which is really sad. Technically speaking, it is said by our chancellor's office that every college does have one, maybe not in a form of a space, but they do have the resources. But I said, if you don't have a space just devoted for our community, we have an issue right there, because everyone should have a place where they could
Yes,
feel comfortable and welcome and have the resources available.
yes, I agree.
So thank you for sharing. I will make sure I added your other comments. So thank you so much for spending the time to adding those. I will make sure to highlight the area specifically into the staff area, that they have to be well equipped.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, do we have any other insight from anyone else in here? Like I said, you don't necessarily have to speak up. You can always use the chat. This time is for you. We are here to serve you. And in the end, when this document does get approved, you will feel nice knowing that you have helped contributed to this document that will then eventually stay here for the rest of the SSCCC history, which hopefully it will be until the end of the times. So anything from anyone else? Ooh, I just saw one comment, but it says, I just recently heard about AB 2586, which opportunity for all, which could allow undocumented students to work in public colleges and universities. If it were to pass, would SSCCC make sure it will be implemented in California community colleges? I myself am undocumented and work and study. What's part-time? Okay, this is something that we are looking forward to. Specifically, there is a resolution that will hopefully get passed during General Assembly that will then make sure that the SSCCC fully focus on this area. What happens is, for Opportunity for All, that was a UC initiative, and I think it began at UCLA. However, not too long ago, the UC regions decided to step back, and they did not made it possible other colleges, which then brings concern for our CSU and our UC partners, our CSU and our community college partners specifically. And I think the major concern with this idea, quote unquote, from them was that if we allow this opportunity, we then have a quote unquote traceable path to the undocumented person, and that the government officials could know who they are and so forth. Because the information that we got is, when you're undocumented, but you live in California and you are a California resident, you are under the AB 540, I guess, bill that gives you the California resident tuition, but you don't necessarily have to be a US citizen. And the thing about that is, there are multiple individuals who, like myself, like I said, I was born here, but I am a AB 540 person because my parents live in Mexico. So I don't, quote unquote, under the standards of the UC system, don't belong as a California resident, given that my parents don't live here. So it gets a little tricky in that area. That is something we definitely want to see. We want to make sure that we provide opportunities for all individuals, but we are looking into partnering with our chancellor's office, getting more legal counsel advising to see how can we push towards this bill implemented federally, or a different version that allows equal or similar resources for our undocumented community in this aspect. But that is something that I can certainly find a way to add in here, one way or the other, and then have that as a priority moving forward. But thank you for sharing. Anyone else? These are amazing points. Thank you.
Hi, Yvonne. This is Michelle Bringman. I'm with North Orange Continuing Education. We're a continuing education accredited school connected with Fullerton College and Cypress College. I am meeting with Stephen Kodor, if I said his name right, pretty soon, so that we can join the SSCCC. I'm glad to be on the call. We have a lot of students who would like to participate in your study here. So I'll put my email in the chat. I don't know if we need to be a member to do that, or if you can contact me about talking with my students, that would be great.
That would be awesome. No, thank you for being here, Michelle. Put your email. I will follow up. Stephanie is an amazing individual, but we will definitely love to have more student input in here. Like I said, this document will be here, and we will use it as a framework for all of our other system. So thank you. I'll make sure to follow up with you after we finish this town hall. Awesome. And I think I saw Annie hands first, and then we can go to Dario.
Yes. Hi, I'm Annie. I apologize. I just got out of class, so I'm on here a little bit late, but was on the, or still actually am, on the undocumented Chapter 4 task force, as well as the vice chair of our DEIA committee. And it sounds like there's been some like really, really good conversation about right, basically barrier-free access for undocumented students, such that undocumented students can achieve all of these really good opportunities to have access to them in our community colleges. And it makes sense to be talking about that, and that's in the space, and have that be something that we're working on. And I did also just want to like share for information. I'll be careful about how I talk about it because I don't want to sound like using platform to campaign, but there is a resolution coming through that the board of directors sponsored at General Assembly, basically about just that, having the SSCCC take the official position, and work to remove these barriers such that undocumented and documented students can access many of these same on-campus opportunities. Similarly, for example, scholarships, EBC, the meals program, the ability to have on-campus employment, like work study. And so I just want to share that that's something that is happening, that Rezo is going through. If that's something that you're really passionate about, right, feel free to go tell others. And if you have any questions about it, I can put my email in the chat if you want. I mean, the Rezos are public, so it's not a secret. You don't like have to email me for it. But if you have any questions or want me to just like send it to you, I'll put my email in the chat for that.
Thank you, Annie. And also, we will put Annie's email also at the end of the presentation. So if you miss it in the chat, it will be also at the end of the little presentation and slideshow. Also, Dario, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dario Fernandez, and I serve as the director of the DREAM program over at Mount San Antonio College in Walnut, California. And just want to take the time to thank you all for the work that you all are doing to move this work forward. As a former undocumented student who's now servicing our undocumented student population, it's awesome to be in the space and know that the impact that you all are doing are going to have for future generations of students is going to be felt. So just wanted to kind of thank you all for that. I wanted to share as part of the Chapter 4 portion where it talks about DACA. I wanted to, I also serve as part of the Region 8 kind of group where we generate a lot of feedback from, not only our students, but also from some of our staff that are working directly with undocumented students at the different campuses. And so one of the concerns that's come up is about the future of DACA, right? And this kind of addresses a point that was mentioned earlier about having resource spaces that are well staffed, right, and having that consistency, because we all know how difficult it is to kind of establish that trust at times with many of our students. And so, part of, I think the reality that I think I want to bring to the forefront is that while, yes, many of our students are DACA recipients, also a lot of our staff and faculty are also DACA recipients, right? And many of these staff and faculty are also drawn to this work and probably hold key roles in the different departments and the different resource centers on different campuses. So, just trying to make sure that we also kind of highlight that to ensure that when we're talking about quality services, sustainability, and consistency for our students, that it also involves making sure that we're addressing the issue in general, right? Another issue that's come up that I would like to kind of potentially highlight or offer for consideration is that sometimes some of our academic programs require hours of service or clinical hours, right, that require students to go through a background check, right, through a life scan. And so that's been really kind of sporadic outcomes for many different campuses, many different students, and just trying to kind of see if there's any way that we could kind of provide some guidance at that level with y'all's advocacy to see if we could kind of, encourage many of our career centers, many of our areas on campus that would typically handle that process to look at how we can make it a much more undocu student-friendly process, because we know that having a social security number is not necessarily a requirement to go to the live scan, but in practice, it might seem like it is, right? And similarly, that sometimes, especially when it comes to programs that require licensure and all these different things at the state level, in practice, what could come through is still the communication that you need to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident in order to be in that program or study that particular major, right? And that shouldn't be used as an admission criteria, backed up by state law. But I think in practice that still might be happening, but not in an intentional way. It's the information piece, right? That I think is there. So I wanted to highlight those two items for consideration.
Thank you, Dario. You have actually brought up very important topics, and I can kind of give you some updates on some of the work that we at the SSCCC have been doing in partnership with our Chancellor's Office. So, for example, I mentioned that I traveled to Washington, D.C. not too long ago, and one of the points that I brought up was actually support for our undocumented community, because not only they basically fit in within so many different levels of accessing to financial aid or serving in a underserved community and so forth. And some of the feedback that we got is we are in critical times legislative wise because of the current political parties that we have, the current problems that we have. Our congressional representatives are doing their best to address this, but a new sort of alternative that they are trying to implement that hopefully will be faster, since we know basically finding ways to get legal citizenship is really hard, and it has been a work in progress for multiple years, is that now they are finding ways for undocumented students to get a work secure that they can actually eventually get a well-paid job. And that is one of the points that our our Chancellor's Office from the statewide is currently trying to focus is, we know that this is taking longer. We want to make sure to keep pushing forward for it, but at the same time, we need to be realistic and we need to understand that it's taking longer than it has to and is negatively affecting our students. So now we're looking into how can we make sure that we provide resources for our undocumented students to continue education so they can get a full-time job, because that is a major concern from our students is, we're undocumented, we want to go to college, but can we even get a job afterwards? Because as you mentioned, many individuals are like, well, we don't have a social security, we don't have legal ways of getting to work. And is that an issue? Well, there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of information, and we need to ensure to address those concerns so that our students are aware of these aspects and that they know. But I wanted to share that from the Chancellor's Office, we're looking into also making sure that we have enough support for our students, and we're moving forward with our congressional representatives addressing these points. And I know there will be another cohort from our SSCCC group who will be traveling to Washington, D.C. again in March to ensure that we reaffirm these points through a different student's perspective. And then I also really enjoy the aspect of including our faculty, our administrators into this equation, because to my understanding, I fully, for some reason, I guess from the student perspective, I did not necessarily take a closer account into consideration for our faculty and administrators when it came down to that. I always, I guess, thought about them from the student perspective, thinking, oh, this is affecting the students, but it is also affecting our faculty. And last weekend, I was able to attend the Faculty Association conference in policy and advocacy, and I was able to get a lot of insight from our faculty and how some of them are actually going through some of the challenges that our students face, which is very interesting to see how our students are facing these issues, and they faced them as when they were students, and now they're facing them again. So thank you for bringing those points. I'll make sure to add them into our document to bring in more inclusivity for all. But thank you, Dario. Does anyone else would like to bring in any other input? Any other words that we
Yes,
have?
on that, on inclusivity. Well, in my school, it has been my experience. I've actually completed the Dreamer Service Incentive grant, and because I am a Grant B recipient, so I was able to qualify for it. But it's unfortunate because we have other undocumented students who have chosen a different career path, and their financial aid, it's not the Grant B, it's perhaps like grant A or C or another kind, and they are excluded from being part of this program that essentially provides funds for students for their volunteer work. And I'm just like their major should not determine whether or not they could participate in volunteering. Like to me, that is just ridiculous. And at my school, like I'm a DACA recipient and I've been able to do that, but others have not. And it would be very nice to just kind of include not just the people who received the call grant B, but the other ones as well, because they're actually volunteering and they're putting in the work, but they're not qualifying for the service incentive grant. So on that, I would like to say that expanding that so that it becomes more inclusive, so that other members of our undocumented community can take advantage of this opportunity that can help fund their education. So again, it's just a lack of funds, right? It's just like our community is just struggling because we don't have the resources for them. But again, we're not making it any easier on them. So I would like to see a change in that specifically.
Thank you for bringing that up. That
Yeah.
is a major problem that we've seen
Yeah.
throughout the states, specifically lack of financial aid coming in. One aspect, and then the other one is the resources. I was able to get into EOP, but I know friends who were not because they were Cal Grant recipients, like Cal Grant C and A, and I
Yeah.
think it is a major. I found a lot of support through EOP, and just knowing that other
Mhm.
students don't have the same resources is really heartbreaking and really concerning. So I will make sure to
Yeah.
add that aspect to bring in more inclusion, accessibility, and that all comes through more financial aid or like more funding for those programs happening from our statewide leadership. Thank you.
Yes. Mhm.
Joa, Joa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Avila. I work at Sierra College. I work in the financial aid office. And I just kind of want to just also say, as with the DSIG program, if we can also, or maybe advocate to also open it up for students who don't qualify for the Cal Grant B, and open it up to students who complete the California Dream Act, because a lot of students don't qualify for AB 540, and so in order to qualify for DSIG, you have to be AB 540 and you have to qualify for Cal Grant. But for students who are only receiving just a tuition waiver and want to take part in the program, can't. So if I know there's not a lot of funding for it, but if it's not being used and there's monies left over that are just sitting there, why not open it up to the students who want to participate that fill out the California Dream Act? Because I've had quite a few like interviews with students at my campus who want to do it, but I have to tell them, you don't qualify because one, you're not AB 540, and two, you don't qualify for Cal Grant. So, and it kind of bums them out. So if I don't know if you can advocate for this, talk to someone at the commission, to see if we do have funds that are extra funds that are available, open it up to those students that don't qualify, that want to participate in the program.
We certainly can advocate. Right now, one of the major quote unquote issues that we heard from our statewide elected officials is the proposed budget by Gavin Newsom. We're hoping by the March revises will look a bit better. So we're looking into not necessarily just asking for funding, but helping ensure that we have. But there's always ways to add funding to specific areas. So we know that although this ask will not necessarily impact now, we want to see it happening in the future. So I will make sure to have this included. And like I said, when we have this documented approved by General Assembly, which is essentially all of our students that attend the conference, which are over 600 students from throughout the states, we will then move forward and start engaging with more deeper communications with our sister partners, saying, this is what we have for this specific underserved community. This is how you can help. And we would love to partner as the statewide student-run organization to support this goal and keep up the communication with all of our students from throughout the states and the attend California community colleges in general. So thank you. Any other points before we start heading into the more closure stage? Like I said, this is gonna be my email is gonna be shown in the end. So if you wanna send me an email instead of like either putting things on the chat or like speaking up, that is totally fine. Or like I said, this is still a work in progress and it will not get approved until April, the first week of April, which is our General Assembly. But since I don't see any other, I will go back to the presentation so we can continue, and then hopefully, okay, I think all of you can see them. I'm just trying to make it large screen. Enter full size. Yay, awesome. So thank you very much for all the input that you provided. These were some of the questions that I was looking for, and I think I forgot to add them in there, but I was able to get a lot of insights. I think many of you are happy with what you see, but would like to see some other implemented points in there, and I will be more than happy to add them. Actually, later today, I will take a look closer into the video and start adding each one of the points brought up, and then I can actually follow up through email and show it to you all. Basically, if you are in our SSCCC listening network, you will get an email at least 2 weeks prior to General Assembly with all of this information, and you can even pay even closer attention because that is quote unquote almost the final before it gets approved. So if you think that we forgot to add something, I will be more than happy to make sure that that gets addressed. And then let's see, these are some of our upcoming events. We have March in March, which is gonna take place in the state capital, and that is taking March 7th. Well, technically speaking, our RSVP form already closed, but if you really would like to bring in these points to March in March, which is our SSCCC sponsored legislative quote unquote visits in the Sacramento, this is where we're gonna have different students, one, but we also are gonna have other partners, including the Chancellor's Office, be there and talking to legislators. If you wanna do that and you wanna share your experience and you in a way can find, maybe you can, like I said, it's a little late to reach out funding from the region, but maybe your college has extra funding, or maybe you live right by the Sacramento area and you wanna possibly attend, this will be great. I will suggest you contact BPLA to ask if there are any aspects of the virtual. I think sometimes we do have virtual aspects to this, but I'm not sure if this year that will be one. But this is a great idea if you want to do some more advocacy at the state capitol. And this is a yearly recurring event. So even if this year is a little too late, we're going to have more other conferences and more other events. The other point that I wanted to talk about is the General Assembly that is taking place in like I mentioned, April 5th to the 7th, and that is taking place hybrid and in person at the Santa Clara Marriott. So the Santa Clara area, Region 4. If you are planning on going there, I would love to see you. This is where we're gonna present our chapters. If you're not, or if you want to attend online is free. I think in person you do have to pay the registration fee. But thankfully, most of our colleges who are part of or who have their student government, they have allocated budget for that aspect. So there's the, and then. Oops, I misspelled. Thank you, President Flander. Yes, sorry for that small typo. And then oops. Now let's go forward to the contact info. I think it went a little too far. There it is. So this is our contact info. I will leave this page open for a little bit. These are my info. So you can reach out to me at any point. This is our Olivia's email. You can reach out to her. She's the task force, or there's Annie email, and then you can reach out to them. And any of us can be able to access or answer any of the questions that you may have regarding the undocumented student work that we're doing within the SSCCC, or just in general, anything else that you would like us to start working on in that aspect. So like I said, I'll leave it there for a few more seconds. We are an open line of communication, and we want to make sure that everyone. Okay, and also I just read the comment that there's no virtual aspect. So if you were planning on attending, you can always reach out and see how we best support you. So thank you, President Cassandra. And then, okay, awesome. And then I see one of our members will be in March. Awesome. And then I have some other information. Okay, so that will be quote unquote the end of our town hall. I will stay longer. I will just quote unquote stop recording to make sure that we are within the expected time, but I will stay here longer to answer any other questions. But with that, let me go back of this. And I want to say thank you everyone for your active participation. Thank you for your advocacy, for making the time to join us. It was great to hear from you all. And I look forward to either seeing you or any of our upcoming events, or getting in contact with me. So with that, I will stop the recording now, but like I said, I will be staying a few more minutes in case you have any other questions. So thank you.